IVC, Dark Dove, filming my 1989 Gimmie 10 response to Freddybigstar in advance. So I'll be throwing this up on the weekend. This will presumably be the last in the Gimmie 10 series. Well, I don't know if Freddy intends to continue into the 90s, but I'd imagine that 90s vinyl being what it is, a lot of the albums being very difficult to find on that format from that decade. I imagine it'd be tricky enough to do to continue it into the decade. But anyway, enough of that. We're in 1989, last year of the 80s. Let's get cracking. Okay, start off with two CDs. Julie Cruz, Floating into the Night. Julie Cruz, known for her collaborations with film director David Lynch, and this includes Floating, which became better known the following year as the main theme music to Twin Peaks. Also, there's Mysteries of Love, which appeared on was it Blue Velvet. So so this she's an absolutely haunting voice, Julie Cruz, and you can see how David Lynch has seen fit to use her kind of unique talents in his movies. Another CD featured them in 1988. Flux and Mutability, David Sylvian and Holger Zuke. David Sylvian, formerly of Japan, and Holger Zuke, formerly of Canon Japan. Their second collaboration. This is not quite as dark in tone as Plight and Premonition, Flux and Mutability. So again, as with that album, it consists of two very long ambient tracks, and this one is a little lighter in tone than that one. There's still two absolutely superb albums they released in the space of 2 years. Okay, rounding off the decade, and what a decade it was for her. Sensual World from Kate Bush. It could be. I don't know. I mean, okay. I don't want to kind of, naming Kate Bush best albums or anything, but this really is an absolutely superb album. And it did come out at the tail end of the 80s, so it does have kind of an 80s feel, but it's none the worse for that. This is the very last of her albums that I own on vinyl, by the way. As I said, from when you get into the 90s, it's kind of CDs start taking over. Moving on. Okay. This is the only album I own by Prince on vinyl. Now, it's definitely not his best album by a stretch. Batman, which came out to accompany the Tim Burton movie. It's actually it's not a fantastic album. Like, it does have one absolute stinker of a song, "The Arms of Orion," but it's probably the last Prince album, which really kind of does it for me personally. As once he went into the 90s, he started going down a kind of an R&B route, which personally myself, I'm not too crazy about the direction that he took after that, but it's a pretty good album still. Bat Dance, Electric Chair, got some really cracking tunes on there. Okay, now I featured Matt Johnson and the before, and this is Mind Bomb, his contribution to 1989, and really decent lineup on this, including Johnny Marr, and who else was on this? Johnny Marr. Who else? Anyway, okay. This is an album which is quite prophetic. End of the decade, kind of a commentary on his times. Some of the commentaries on this about things like the clash between Islam and the West are quite prophetic. I'm not sure what song it is he says that. Is it Armageddon? Yeah, Armageddon Days Are Here Again, which is, I think, quite prophetic, with the kind of current state of things. By the way, this comes with a poster as well. I don't know if you can try and show it as best I can. There. So yeah. So Matt Johnson, with Mind Bomb. Moving on. Okay, now some of these I've shown fairly recently because some of them are recent pickups, so probably won't try to go into too much detail. Now this album, I have a funny feeling that Fred will show this as part of his '89 update. Moss Side Story by Barry Adamson, formerly of Magazine and Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. This is a kind of a concept album on the Moss Side, which is a area of Manchester where Barry Adamson grew up. A pretty tough inner city area, and it's kind of an imaginary film noir kind of soundtrack, kind of commentary on. So it kind of feels like an imaginary movie soundtrack, or kind of yeah. So but it's really is definitely one of the best albums of '89, in my opinion. Barry Adamson, Moss Side Story. Yeah, another one I've shown fairly recently, because this was a relatively recent pickup, so I won't go into too much detail about it, is Einsturzende Neubatten. Haus der Luge, Einsturzende Neubatten, German post-punk industrial outfit from Berlin. Though you might not think it from the cover art, this is where they actually kind of started going in a slightly more mellow direction compared to what they've been doing before this, but it's a pretty hard and heavy hitting album. This was released on Rough, I think. Oh no, it was released on Some Bizarre. Okay, trying to make this fairly short. Now, again, staying kind of in the industrial experimental genre, is the legendary Pink Dots, which Greetings 9. This is the only album I have by the legendary Pink Dots. They're Anglo-Dutch, a British group, initially based in Britain, and I think then they moved to Holland. But very hard to categorize, kind of neo-psychedelic, meets post-punk, meets industrial, kind of very experimental and kind of weird, but very hard to find their stuff in the wild. As I said, this is the only album I have by them. Yeah, if you're into kind of weird, kind of neo-psychedelic, kind of experimental kind of stuff, this is probably right down your street, but yeah, pretty hard to find their stuff in the wild. So it is the only album I have by them, and it's this is an Italian pressing, I think. It's on a label, material. Anyway, I won't try to pronounce it. It's an Italian pressing anyway. Okay, just bear with me. Now Nick Cave featured him in '88, which the Bad Seeds. Now this is side project. This is a collaboration with Nick Cave, Mick Harvey, and Blixa Bargeld. Now all three of them members of the Bad Seeds, and Blixa Bargeld actually also a member of Einsturzende Neubatten, whom I just featured a minute ago. This is a soundtrack album to an Australian prison movie called Ghosts of the Civil Dead. I've seen the movie. It's on YouTube. It's pretty grim and brutal movie, but the inspiration for this is more of kind of real life events which took place in a prison in America. So there's kind of the spoken word inserts with this prison officer whose name is David Hale, interspersed with the soundtrack itself, which is kind of dark ambient, maybe a bit of industrial kind of an influence, but it perfectly suits the movie itself, which is quite hard hitting, and it's released on Mute. So that's Ghosts of the Civil Dead by Nick Cave, Mick Harvey, and Blixa Bargeld. Okay, last album, continuing with an Australian connection. This is by a band called Sirico, and this is called Port of Call. Sirico, they're from Australia. They are from, not exactly sure exactly where. I think they might be from Melbourne. I might be wrong on that. But this is an album which is very much kind of has a kind of world music, elements of folk, a little bit of kind of an ECM kind of a vibe to it. It's on an Australian label called Jarrah Hill Records, a small label, and it's kind of a musical voyage around the world, basically. So Port of Call, as it kind of indicates, there's European influences, the Irish folk influence, African, Asian, kind of South Pacific, and but it's a mixture that works really on this album. So it's a little known band, but one that perhaps deserves to be better known, because this is an excellent album, Port of Call by Sirocco. Okay, so that's it. That's my top 10 for '89. Yes, I know there's a lot of albums which I only have on CD, like the Stone Roses debut and Pixies. Blah, you know the one. Anyway, that's it. So I'll be doing so I presume this is the last in the series of Gimmie 10. So thanks for watching, and everyone have a great weekend.